Welcome to All Things Financial with Jack Driscoll. Each week, Jack takes on all things you thought were hard to understand about your finances and makes it fun, easy, but most of all interesting. From insurance to the best way to save your money and squeeze the most out of the dollars you put aside for your rainy day. And now, you have a friend in the money business. Here's your host, Jack Driscoll.
Welcome back again, everyone, to another edition of All Things Financial. What I wanted to go over now is some of the issues and concerns regarding the flooding that just happened on June 20th, last Wednesday, about a week and a half ago now. And there are many issues that none of us were prepared for, let alone the flood, but the aftermath of the flood. What do we do now that we've been flooded or our neighbors have been flooded, people we want to help, and we're trying to band together as a community. My office is in Bethel Park, so I'm watching the community of Bethel Park and neighboring communities, Bridgeville in the city, South Park, all the communities are trying to get together to help each other out, which is a wonderful thing to see. And what I wanted to share on this week's show are just some bits of information that might help some of you. And I'd like to start off with different segments, whether the programs are federal programs or state programs, or whether it's your own insurance policies and things like that, whether you had insurance or not. There still may be some slivers of some types of coverage for some of you. So listen through the show and we'll go through each one by one. One of the things that I'm hearing over and over again, just by talking and listening to people, there are some senior residents, elderly people, whose neighbors are asking them, did you get any flooding? Can we come over and help? And then elderly neighbors are saying, you know, usually they're single, the ones that I'm hearing, are saying, no, we didn't get any flooding, we didn't get anything. And now, after time is passing, it's becoming more and more evident to the neighbors. They have water in their basements. They have silt and muck, and they did get water damage. They did get flood damage, and they're just not admitting it because they're asking questions of their neighbors. Why are so many people trying to get into my house? Why all the intrusion? Because a lot of elderly people don't like that. But they need the help and won't take the help and won't admit they had it in some cases, and it's being shared with me, some of the reasons. Because I said, why? Why wouldn't anybody want the help if someone comes to help? And what I'm being told is they're afraid to let people into their homes, especially strangers, which all of us are who are trying to help usually. They're afraid that people are just going to randomly throw things out, that they are their precious, cherished memories that they want to go through one by one and don't want to lose their memories. Those are some of the things I'm hearing. So as irrational as the response seems to be, no, we don't need any help, or no, we didn't have any flooding, I implore all of you, please be a little more diligent on your elderly neighbors. I don't know how, but please go over and try to really diagnose whether they did have water and are hiding it, because they need help. Even if they're not willing to accept help, you might want to ease your way in there and help them realize why we're all friends. You know what we ran into, and I've seen some of this issue, but when I talk to people about this flood situation recently, what I'm hearing is, well, we couldn't get flood insurance. We tried because we're not in a flood insurance zone. So the National Flood Insurance Program is available for everyone in every community that is a participating community with the National Flood Insurance Program. You don't actually have to be in a flood zone. So if all of those people that are saying, we tried and we couldn't get it, it's all misinformation. I looked up the whole list. You can even give me a call if you want the list. Scott Township's in the list. Most of Allegheny County. I think all of Allegheny County's in the list. Bridgeville's in the list. Bethel's in the list. South Park's in the list. We're all in participating communities, which means every resident, for the most part, in every one of those areas can get flood insurance. And if you're not in a high-risk flood zone, which most of us weren't, we've never been flooded before to this extent, our premiums would have been cheap. Our premiums probably still ongoing in the future will be cheap. So do look into the National Flood Insurance Program and see for the future, at least, if you could obtain flood insurance just for all this surface waters and whether you even want to. I get asked a lot, if I have flood insurance, am I going to be paid? Or I get the complaints that if I had flood insurance, it never paid for anything anyway, so I canceled it, or my neighbors never got anything for it. So the generalities on the flood insurance are, you could buy flood insurance through private insurance companies, although not many offer it privately, or you can buy flood insurance through any other companies that will issue it, but it's almost all through the National Flood Insurance Program. So even if other companies are issuing it, it's normally being the National Flood Insurance Program that's handling the claims. So you receive a policy, and it's true, a lot's not covered. So you buy insurance, there's a maximum limit usually on the building, and it's not normally the building that's the issue, although as we've seen even in Bethel Park, there are a few buildings with enough structural damage that yes, that is a big issue. The contents are the most common issue and the debris removal. You will see most damage in our basements. So flood insurance in many areas of the country, Florida let's say, are all ranches with no basement. They're all built on slabs. Totally different coverage scenario than we have here with all these basements. Most flood insurance will not cover much underground level in basements. So your basement fills up 4 feet and it ruins your hot water heater, it ruins your furnace, it ruins all your carpeting, it ruins all your contents, even ruins your drywall that you had a finished basement and things in your garage. We've got a problem because not much of that is covered, but some of it is. The fixed appliances as a majority. So our furnace and our hot water heater and our electrical box, if it got there, those type things are typically going to be covered underground, not a whole lot else. But hey, that's $5,000 or $7,000 or $10,000 there. So that's the answer, the short answer on, can we buy this insurance? Are we eligible? And if we did, would it even cover anything? What we have as a major question with this flood situation that we've just had is, where do we go for help if we did not have insurance? I brought some resources that I know of, and there are many, many others. Number one, check with each one of your communities. So I know most of you have done that already. Talk with your neighbors and all, but get to the communities. The reason I say this is most communities are trying to apply for FEMA money, Federal Emergency Management Agency money, relief money, which are grants possibly, or loans possibly, or at least low interest loans, reimbursements of costs. So here's what we all have to do. As citizens, help our governments help us. And that process goes like this. The municipality has to file to see if they can get approval that it really was a disaster zone. And in order to do that, they have to have damages that in excess of certain limits to qualify for disaster relief. And that could be anywhere from $16 to $18 million. So they need our help, us homeowners, to assess our potential damages and report them to the municipality so that they can add and assess all of the potential damage and the assessment and appraisals of the amount of that damage. So please, let's help our commissioners get money for our community that can filter back possibly to our own homes in either low interest rate loans or whatever it is, even reimbursing the council and the municipalities for all the overtime and the roads, help freeing up money. That's a very important component. So what can you do? Number one, help them with that assessment. They normally have to prepare their paperwork within about 30 days. So what you want to do is try to get an assessment as quickly as you can, get the documentation, whatever you can, up to the municipalities, and then that's their first start. I'll do another couple segments on what else you could do. But that's the first thing that all of us need to be working on after the initial response to our neighbors. There are some resources I brought with me today to try to share with everyone. Bethel Park, for instance, has some community involvement, and that's the Bethel Park Volunteer Fire Department over there, which is a good resource. The community center, you come over here to the municipal building and you contact, and I'm going to share a couple phone numbers and contacts with you to maybe help us all communicate a little bit better. What we have first is we have a Black Hawk, and I don't mean first in order of priority. We have a Black Hawk Family Relief Fund. I want everyone to Google that if they think they need some help or have neighbors need some help, because there's a relief fund there, and also through the relief fund they're trying to collect donations. One of the easiest ways to get donations to them is go to any Citizens Bank, and you can actually donate. They're taking donations in person toward the Black Hawk Family Relief Fund, and that's for Bethel Park. So that helps a lot. That's number one. We have some other resources here. We have the Bethel Park Emergency Management. Now, as I understand it, and I could be wrong on this, I think this is being I think they're newly forming another group here too, to where we have the fire department, we have the police department, and the fire department's mostly a volunteer fire department. They're trying to assemble a volunteer emergency management response team. But in any case, there's a phone number here at the municipality, and it's 412-831-6800, extension, I have extension 205 or extension 130. I'm not sure whether both of those extensions are correct, but what they're designed for are to report damage if you have not done so already. If you've sustained any damage, that's your first starting point. Make the municipality aware. That's your first starting point there, and it helps a lot of us help you, and it helps you report everything and helps us all connect together. Now, there's another one. The County Assistance Office says they're aware of flooding and power outages that may have ruined the food supply of some SNAP, which are food stamp recipients. So they have an 800 number or a toll-free number they want you to contact if that's happened to you, and that is 1-877-395-8930. There was a council meeting last week, and there were a couple representatives from political offices there, looking to see where they can help. And I saw an article here regarding Allegheny County, actually. County Executive Rich Fitzgerald declared a countywide disaster emergency. And here's what they're asking for. They're looking to authorize county resources to try to help in the county. But again, what they need is a formal assessment of the damages in the area. So here's what they're asking us to do. They're asking for a formal damage assessment process to be helped out by all of us in Allegheny County. And it's in assistance with the Pennsylvania Emergency Management Agency. And they want us to email. And they want us to email our estimated damages and things, contact information and things like that. Email to OEMHS. That's like Oscar, Education, Mary, Harold, Samuel. OEMHS at Pittsburgh, spelled out, PA.gov. If anyone Googles PEMA, which is for the Pennsylvania Emergency Management Agency, the Western Area Office, that'll pop up and you can contact them through that too. But they're trying to get the initial damage assessment, and that's to help for federal funding, along with helping everyone out. Now, we have another website. I shared with you the phone number already for Bethel Park, but we have another website for PEMA, and that is www.PEMA. That's P like Peter, E like Education, M like Mary, A like Apple, .pa.gov. You'll see additional waste vehicles out there, garbage vehicles. I mean, there's been a lot of help on this, but I want to try to share as many resources at this time period as I can. If you want to volunteer to help, or if you need help, please don't forget to call, if you're in Bethel Park, 412-831-6800, extension 130. Provide your information. They're taking lists of volunteers who would like to help others that are affected, and they're taking lists of people who are affected who might be looking to either provide an assessment of damages or looking for volunteers to help. So that line works for both ways, so please take use of that. Now also, there's a community gathering on Friday, June 29th, and this show may miss that, I'm not sure, from 1 to 6 p.m. at the Schoolhouse Arts Center at 2600 South Park Road, next to the Community Center in Bethel Park, Pennsylvania. That's to allow for supportive conversation. In other words, all of us getting together to figure out what to do for each other. And there will be snacks and beverages provided, so please come out for that if you can. And also on Friday at that Community Center, you'll see there's a service resource center set up on the following Friday, July 6th, at the Community Center in Bethel Park from 2 to 8 p.m. And various agencies will be there, and we're just trying to help to see what resources are available for flood victims. The Black Hawk Family Relief Fund has actually set up a GoFundMe page for monetary donations. So please also take advantage of that, or go to Citizens Bank directly and you can make your contributions there. You know, I saw an article on, it wasn't only Bethel Park or it wasn't only Bridgeville. I mean, it was all of, at least southwestern Pennsylvania, it seems like, the whole way down Banksville Road. So we're all in this together. And I saw an article here that I wanted to share with everyone, and it's titled, Bridgeville Flood Victims Take Photos and Save Receipts. Wow, none of us might think about that. Number one, I'm going to implore all of you, take pictures. It may be too late for half of you to hear that. Pictures of the damage before anything is touched, pictures along the way, and pictures when it's finished. Take pictures all along the way. If you've expended any expenditures or anyone else has on your behalf, take photos and save receipts. What you need to do, hang on to the older receipts of whatever you might have had on the items that were lost if those receipts weren't damaged, because whether FEMA intervenes or not, if they do, it's again based on the assessment of values. So all of this will help you build the case on what the assessment of values are. And it's huge, but you can help, and those are some of the ways you can help. But you also want proof and documentation of the loss. So I know many of us are acting so fast we're forgetting to take the pictures and documentation along the way, but I did want to share that also. I'd like to touch on a couple things about we didn't have insurance, or we did have insurance, or what does it cover, or does my homeowner's policy cover it? What about the cars? Let me touch on that. Let's start with the cars. We have cars that are ruined as a result of the flood. As you know, flood is not covered by much anything except flood insurance. However, you will find the car insurance policies if you have physical damage coverage. If you have bought physical damage coverage, which is comprehensive and collision coverage, flood insurance is not typically excluded. Flood insurance will be included on most all of your car insurance policies. They'll probably total the cars out, but you probably have the coverage subject to your deductible. So all of you who had liability-only coverage, you're right, you will not have coverage on your car insurance policies for flood. But all of you who have full coverage, or at least comprehensive coverage, even if you don't have collision, if you have comprehensive coverage, it's subject to your deductible, but you will likely have coverage on those cars you lost. So I wanted to share that with you. All hope is not lost in many cases, even if you did not have flood insurance. A lot of people are asking, what about my homeowner's policy? This was, and then we draw a blank. Flood, backup of water through sewers, water seeping through basement walls, water coming in through the windows, Rainwater, now we have a problem. We can't figure out what the initial cause of the water was, right? So if it's rain, and here's what I want you to do. I want you to consider with your insurance agents, call them and ask them, hey, I got damage. And let them tell you no or tell you yes. Some of you have backup of water coverage, backup of water through your sewers, endorsed onto your homeowners policies. There is possible coverage there. Maybe it'll be denied because they'll say it was surface waters, flood waters, but maybe you won't be denied because maybe it'll be proven that the sewer's backed up and force that water back up. So get to those agents. Don't just take it for granted that all of these claims are not covered if you did not have flood insurance. Water seeping through basement walls never would be covered, but water backing up through sewers might be if you have those endorsements. Not all policies do, but a lot do. So check into that. Now, those people that are asking questions about flood insurance usually don't have it, because if you have flood insurance, you've already made the phone call and you're waiting. But there are some misnomers about flood insurance. Number one is what I've shared earlier. We were told we can't get flood insurance, we're not in a flood zone. That's just wrong. Number two, we were told flood insurance won't cover anything. That's just wrong. So I wanted to go through a couple things that are myths, actually. You have to live in a floodplain? No. To get National Flood Insurance Program insurance, though, they don't, as an agency, issue flood insurance directly. So if you contact the National Flood Insurance Program, they will refer you to an agent, because only agents can write this coverage. They don't write any coverage direct, even though it's subsidized through their program, and even though an insurance company that writes it is actually writing it through their program, but they don't write it direct. They take advantage of all the different companies and agents. So what do you need to be able to get a flood insurance policy? As I mentioned in different segments, all you need is to have your home located in a National Flood Insurance Program participating community. And all of us pretty much are. Bethel Park, South Park, Bridgeville, all of us pretty much are. So number one, are we eligible to buy the coverage? Lo and behold, contrary to popular opinion, yes, you don't have to be in a flood zone. You can be on top of a hill in those participating communities and still buy flood insurance. Number two, flood doesn't just mean from a creek. Flood many times means just what we had. Rainwater hitting the top of a hillside, coming down the street, your driveway slopes down, water runs down in and fills your basement 4 feet. That's a flood. Surface waters are considered flood insurance. So why would we buy flood insurance? We're nowhere near a river or stream. I always hear, if a river or stream gets up this high, we're all gone. We're all done for. Well, as we just witnessed, that's not how it works. Rainwater comes from the sky, and all it has to do is hit the hollow of a hill in between two high hilltops, and you end up getting water in your house. So that's considered a flood. So take it more seriously now. This event just showed us than we thought before. So it's not just for high-risk areas, as we just learned. Now, another myth, flood insurance covers everything. Well, no. There's above ground, there's below ground. It covers very little below ground, but it does cover the structure. It does cover the furnace. It does cover the hot water heater and things like that. That's a lot of money. So it does cover something. And on the first floor, if you have a ranch or your damage is on the first floor, it covers a whole lot more, especially if you bought contents coverage, which you have to do separately on either that policy or on a separate policy, or your contents will not be covered. And thirdly, if you have an appurtenant structure, what we call it, like a garage or shed out back, you have to make sure coverage is covering those contents, because it's above ground. You have a very good chance of having coverage unless you forgot to list it, and then you don't. So those are some of the myths regarding flood insurance. The last one is my homeowners covers flood already, and as we know, it pretty much does not. And I did explain there are many different things that I'm not able to go through on these segments, but Contact your agents, find out what you are and are not covered for, find out what you are and are not eligible for. I want to talk to you business owners briefly. Businesses get flooded too. And when a business gets flooded, it's expensive. It's also lost work, it's downtime, you're out of business possibly for a period of time, and you have sanitary issues if you're a restaurant. So we have many issues in there, but I'm going to share something with you. We're all being told that if you don't have flood insurance, you don't have insurance. And I'm going to tell you, if you have your equipment scheduled on your business package, if you have regular contents, and you say, I have $300,000 worth of contents, and that's how your policy is listed, you have building and you have contents, or business personal property, flood is probably excluded from all of that damage on those contents. But if you have equipment, and your equipment is scheduled, in other words, listed, specifically scheduled equipment all along the line, typically on an equipment floater, and we've had cases where $300,000 or $400,000 of equipment is scheduled, flood is not typically excluded. Let me say that again. If you have equipment and you're a business, and that equipment is scheduled as specific equipment on a business policy, we have seen massive lists of equipment, $300,000 or $400,000, for example, all scheduled. And the flood in Carnegie in 2004, some businesses got paid to replace all of that equipment brand new, and other businesses didn't, solely because they had their equipment scheduled and the business right next door did not. And the same flood, they were covered. So check your policies. Do not take for granted, we don't have flood insurance, we're on our own, none of this is covered. Check it, see if you have equipment floaters. Some of you may actually be covered for what you think you are not. All right, folks, I appreciate you tuning in to another edition of All Things Financial. I'll be back again next week.